Hi, my name is Lauren Colombo. I'm a neurodivergent coach specializing in late diagnosed individuals who are trying to find their way forward in their life and business. And you're about to watch the online prosperity show with the amazing Prosper.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to yet another exciting episode of the Online Prosperity Show. I'm your host, Prosper Taruvinga, and today we're going to be diving into a journey that will resonate with anyone who's ever felt out of place, overwhelmed, or unsure how to harness their true potential. Our guest today, Lauren. Lauren, how are you doing today?
I'm very well, thank you. And you?
Fantastic. Or should I say Coach Lorraine? I think I quite like that. It's got a bit of a ring to it, doesn't it?
Thank you. I kind of like that too.
Absolutely. Now, for those that are meeting Lorraine for the very first time, let me take you from under that digital rock you've been placing yourself under, because Lorraine is a true Renaissance woman, a UI UX expert turned, life and business coach who also specializes in helping late diagnosed neurodivergent individuals like herself thrive in life and in business. Now, Lorraine's story is like most stories that you've probably heard, or the one that you are about to hear, because it is anything but ordinary. She was diagnosed with Ehlers Danlos syndrome. You're gonna have to help me with this because this is the first time I'm actually learning about this in 2016, and also later she discovered her AuDHD superpowers. She has transformed what others things might be a challenge into a toolkit that actually empowers and helps others to grow. Now, her work helps neurodivergent people unlock their brilliance, navigate overwhelm, and embrace the gifts that make them unique. In this episode, you're going to learn Lorraine's approach, which has now become a game changer in and of itself. So whether you're neurodivergent yourself or you're just simply seeking clarity in your life, I think this is the episode that you want to tune into. We're also going to be uncovering some of the invisible lessons that Lorraine has learned along the way. And she's actually been showing me some of her crafts. Those are to die for. And also, she's been an avid motorbike rider. She's going to be telling us all about that. But when she's not doing any of those things, she's probably somewhere in her office or in her room gluing herself to a table or something along those lines. It's all hilarious from now on, trust me. So I want you to stick around because you won't want to miss Lorraine's advice and what it is that she's been helping others be, do, and have a happier existence. Now, Lorraine, you heard me mincing my words and trying to be cooler than I usually am. It's only because I'm a little bit starstruck. I've been following your journey for a bit, and there's a lot to it than meets the eye. Tell us a little bit about your journey so far and what it is that you're doing to help others.
Thank you. My journey has been one of very much self-discovery. The Ehlers-Danlos, it's a congenital disorder, so I was born with it, and it's took a long time to get a diagnosis for that because it was just assumed that I'm hypermobile, so I'm extra bendy. The kids that can bend their legs in weird directions and touch their hands behind their back and do all sorts of party tricks. Turned out to be a bit deeper than that. So once I did get my diagnosis, we recognized that this actually affects the collagen in my entire body. So my organs, my eyes, my ears, my hands and muscle control, all of that. So gradually I've learned that it wasn't such a great idea to show people how flexible I was as a kiddo, and has led to many surgeries to put me back together again. And I kind of, and this is where the motorcycle is a bit funny because my friends joke with me that I can't stand for long periods without risking dislocations. So I go from a wheelchair to a cane to looking absolutely fine to riding my motorbike, and that can be in the course of a single day. So it gets very entertaining sometimes. And it's a disorder which isn't, it's more common than people think, 1 in 1,500 people, but it's only diagnosed in 1 in 15,000 people. So all of those really flexy people you see on dance shows, on Cirque du Soleil, in the contortionists, they probably have either some kind of Ehlers-Danlos syndrome or hypermobility syndrome, which are very closely interconnected. But where the story kind of gets more interesting is I did not realize that I was autistic or that I had ADHD. And a friend of mine sort of started to point out just before COVID that she'd just gotten her diagnosis and maybe I should investigate this myself, particularly the ADHD, because as you mentioned, I adore crafting and I have a wonderful story about the gluing myself to a table. But crafting is like really my thing. Any new craft, I'll watch a couple of videos, I'll pick it up, I'll do it, and then I'll not finish it, but I'll put it down and pick up the next one. So I've got hundreds of incomplete craft projects. And she's like, no, this is kind of like a sign of ADHD. Maybe go and get checked for that too. And I started seeing a therapist, and she's like, okay, I can see these in you. We'll do the official diagnosis. And then COVID happened. And everything kind of, my entire life just collapsed during COVID. My marriage was a victim of COVID as well. So my husband moved out. And I was alone for the first time in my entire life for a longer period. And I had nobody to mask for anymore. And I didn't realize that I'd been masking for so many years. So my mask fell off and completely fell away. And when I rejoined the world a while later, suddenly everything was different. My entire interaction with people had changed. Going to a shopping mall was traumatic. There was lights and sound and so many people. And I honestly just wanted to come home and hide under the bed. It was too much. So I continued seeing my therapist, and I finally did get my diagnosis of autism and ADHD. So I combine that into AuDHD. I know some people don't like it, some people do. It's all dependent on the community that you speak to. And I thought to myself, okay, well, 2018, I became a counselor because I've always wanted to help people. I wanted to become a paramedic, but my body wouldn't allow me to when I was younger, and now I understood why. So how else could I help? And counseling, while we deal with what's happening in the moment, I wanted to help people move into the future and to figure out what's next for them and how to get there. So I got the opportunity to study with Mind.Valley as a business coach and start working on business fronts. And this was great. And I thought, okay, I can really start making an impact here. I'm a serial entrepreneur myself. How can I help neurodivergent people tackle the overwhelm of running a business? How can I help them with that day-to-day executive dysfunction of what do I do first? How do I prioritize this? How do I handle money? And then I kind of figured that, hold on, it's not actually the business that I want to focus on, it's the person, because the person impacts the business, especially if it's a small business. So I started studying life coaching, which I've completed that study. And I obviously focus on preferably late diagnosed individuals, but I do work with other neurodivergent people as well. And really focusing on what are the things that are sticking for them. If they've just gotten their diagnosis, how are they feeling about this? How is this impacting their family? So I provide support for their family now learning how to deal with a person who's completely different to everything they've ever known. Because a big part of receiving your diagnosis is working through the masks that you've put on to try and blend in and become what society expects you to be. So working through those masks, and suddenly your partner doesn't recognize who you are because they met you with this mask on. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done about taking these masks off and becoming comfortable with the person that you are. And once that happens, we can deal with the skill regression, learning how to pick up all the things that seem to have vanished, and then how to really embrace the autistic, the dyslexic, the ADHD, the bipolar, the pieces of you that make up that neurodivergence, embrace them, which can be really difficult. But each one of those has something really special about them that we can use to bring you forward in your life and to make that thrive happen. And that's what I like
Mm.
focusing on now.
Absolutely, absolutely. And thank you so much, for taking us through that journey in and of itself and, giving us all these highlights. Now, growing up, what was that like? Because obviously you would, like you were saying, be that kid at a party that's showing off all these tricks. What was the perception of friends, relatives, people around you? Nobody would say anything or notice something?
So as a kid, I was fairly quiet. I unfortunately lost my dad to suicide when I was 7. So it was difficult. My mom was doing the absolute best that she could. She had her own massive traumas that she was dealing with. So I was actually, it was more so with friends, more so with family, actually, that they noticed I was super flexy. But with that came frequent injuries. So I was always getting hurt. I was always twisting or spraining things. So I was more teased than anything else about it. And I was typically the quiet kid in the corner who didn't really know how to start a conversation with anyone. And being a kid of the 80s and in the early 90s, they just classed me as shy or oversensitive. There
Mm.
wasn't a lot of education around girls who could be autistic. So, I would go to parties and I would end up either sitting outside on my own or I'd sit in the corner of the room with my hands over my ears because the music was too loud or there were just too many people or it was just too bright or whatever the case may be. So it was just thought that I was what's double jointed was the word,
Mm.
and quiet and sensitive.
I can only imagine because I'm gonna say this with utmost love and respect, but we sort of grew up around the same era, and you especially around the same places. We would have at school, kids that were sort of in that sort of way or form or playfulness, they could call that. They were not concentrating in class. They had their own special class where that there was that relegation and separation because then they would disturb the other kids. Was that something that was introduced in your space or it wasn't like that?
Not at all. So my form of ADHD is the internal or the distractible. So
Mm.
I'm not the like hypermobile, have to keep moving, have to keep busy all the time. That's all going on in my head.
Ooh.
So I was the very very quiet, very, very bright student who sat in the front of the class and was always paying attention, but was always coming up with different ideas. Or I had to draw while I was in class so that I could pay attention to what the teacher was saying because I had things happening in my brain that I needed to keep quiet. And the teachers would get upset with me and they would check that I was actually paying attention and I'd be able to write essays on stuff that they'd said to me when they thought I wasn't paying attention. And from then on, the teachers that were kind and understanding actually realized that my drawing, because I took art as well, um, allowed me to pay attention to what they were saying. So I was given that little bit of flexibility, but because I was coping in general with my subjects and I was doing well, I was kind of left to my own devices and I had to figure it out for myself.
Absolutely. And obviously, with that, once you figure out something that works, that creates a mask, right? And then soon enough, the masks are adding up. And by the time COVID hit, did you know who you were in that situation?
Absolutely not. I had no clue. I thought I knew who I was. I mean, I was 38, and well, 37 at the time, but I thought I had a good understanding. I mean, I was married, I had a house, I had everything that society dictated I should have by this age, except for kids. Um, I lost the only pregnancy that I did have, unfortunately. And this is going to sound terrible to some people, I'm sure, but I'm grateful that I haven't passed my genetics onto a child. I can't imagine a child growing up with the kind of joint pain and things that I've experienced. So one side that's really sad. One side I'm kind of grateful, but my husband has two wonderful stepsons. So, well, two wonderful sons that are my stepsons now. So I'm grateful to have them in my life. But um, it's I had no clue. I had absolutely no clue who I was, what I was doing. And when everything fell down, it made me take a step back and go, whoa, what's actually happening here? Why did all of this happen? And as I started investigating deeper and deeper and deeper, and I realized that, when I go to work, I'm chatty and I talk to people, but I never really got the same feedback that other people would. My relationships with people were always slightly different. I kind of felt like I had foot and mouth disease. You stick the one foot in and you make space for the other foot because you've said something wrong. There was always this like weird disconnect. And as I started removing these masks, well, not purposely, but as they started coming off, I realized that I speak a version of the language that people just don't understand. And that's because I see the world differently. It's not, I don't view the world the same way. I don't experience the world the same way. I mean, literally, the sensations on my skin are different to how other people feel them because I'm hypersensitive. And that's not just my emotions, but it's actually my entire nervous system. So
But
it's been a journey of discovery.
but obviously, and thank you so much for highlighting that. But Lorraine, do you concur that we actually live in a very artificial world? A world where the lighting is artificial, the walls are artificial, the materials we're using are artificial. I viscerally believe as human beings, we have gone so far away from the natural state of life that maybe it's certain individuals amongst us that have that sensitivity. Because if you're talking about going to the shopping center, that's already a fake environment with fake noises, fake people, and everything else that comes along with that. Are you just maybe sensitive to the world that literally does shouldn't exist?
You you have actually just given me such a beautiful visual of what this means. Now, absolutely, I agree with you completely. We live in a world of microplastics. We live in a world of all of these things that aren't natural. They've just done a study on rats where they introduced artificial light and took them away from the natural sunrise sunset time, and immediately the rats' brains started having symptoms of inflammation. Their brains, their joints, their bodies, almost straight away, everything started showing signs of inflammation. And with inflammation became other issues that the rats started to experience. Now, if you scale that up into a human, and we've been doing this our entire lives, what does this actually mean for our brain function? And how is our brain, our poor brain, that's under permanent stress, managing all of this falseness that's around us? But people say one of the biggest diagnostic criteria for somebody with autism is the lack of emotion. And it's still believed in many, many countries that if you display any kind of emotion or you can read any kind of emotion, you can't possibly be autistic. And one of the other biggest traits is the inability to read social cues and like small talk, little things like that. But the reality is that we deal with false emotion. So that false cheerfulness that comes with small talk and engaging in, oh, I don't really want to talk to you, but I don't have anything better to do right now. Autistic people really battle with that because it's inauthentic. But real, deep, true emotion, many autistic people are able to not just harness, but fully empathize with because we feel on a very, very deep level. So, and I'm not saying this for all autistic people. You've met one neurodivergent person, you've met one neurodivergent person because we are all so different and it's a wonderful spectrum of diversity. But it's truly the inauthenticness of people that confuse many autistic people.
Absolutely. And I mean, you would maybe appreciate this. I mean, there's also a certain thing about going to places where the people that are there are just being there because society deems or expects them to be there. Does that not create somewhat of an imposter syndrome on somebody who is maybe neurodivergent or something like that?
It really does. Imposter syndrome is usually a fairly big problem, especially if they're, again, not authentically living their lives. You get many autistic people who are in the development industry, because they can really sit and they can focus on their code and they can pull in the hyper focus, and it's really analytical and it's very structured. So it works really well for them. And they thrive in that environment when they're left alone to do it. But you get others who are forced into a position where, because their masks are so good, they are assumed to be really good with people. So a friend of mine, she runs the entire social and online communities for a really big brand. And as a result, she has to engage with a lot of people all the time. She engages with agencies, she engages with upper management and all sorts of different teams. And it absolutely exhausts her. By the end of the day, she just wants to crawl into bed and stay there because she is so tired from having to mask all the time. And then this is imposter syndrome of, who am I? Why am I doing this? Yeah, I need to earn a salary, but is this really me? Is this really where I want to be? Should I be doing this? Am I qualified to do this? And the reality is that, yes, the masked her is absolutely qualified to do the job. But the unmasked version of her is now quite vulnerable because she's taking strain from living this double life.
Mm. Now, you were left to own devices during the pandemic, and you did mention the story of your husband leaving as well. That obviously would have taken a toll on you. Like you said, you hadn't been alone for a very sort of long time, but then you went inward, and then the actual revelation started coming out. What was that scary?
Oh, terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. I had literally been on my own for maybe 3 weeks in my entire life up to that point. And I was now alone for, I think it was 3, 4, 5 months, somewhere around there. And I mean alone, as in, when the separation happened, my entire family took his side. So I lost everybody. It was really, really rough. There were moments where I did attempt suicide myself. It was a bad place to be. I later found out that my medication that I was on actually impacted that and made the entire situation even worse. I discovered that most antidepressants are black box and they cause suicidal ideation, which is, it's unhelpful. I didn't realize that by upping, I was in a lot of body pain because of my condition, and the doctor had upped my dose of antidepressants, which had now started triggering these really dark mental thoughts. And that, coinciding with my husband leaving and everything else that happened afterwards, kind of turned into this disaster. And my friend, my heart sister, I call her, she certainly came to my rescue, and she spent days with me making sure that I was okay and wasn't going to do anything stupid. But the only place I could really go was in. I was not going to go out. I'm immune compromised, so I couldn't go out and risk getting sick. And there was no one else around except for my dogs and cats, and they're not terribly good conversationalists. So the only place I could go was in. And I needed to start figuring out what was happening with me. And I worked out that I'd spent so much of my life looking to other people, looking for, I would class myself as an empath. So I was always looking for the threat in the room, and usually making friends with the threat in the room, because then I could keep my enemy close and I knew that I wasn't going to get stabbed in the back or something. So a lot of my relationships were narcissistic. I discovered that I had chosen these cycles to live in through past traumas, and I needed to break those cycles. I needed to stop putting myself into the situations where I'm attracted to the risk. And this is something that a lot of people also don't realize. I needed to work out what was happening with me, why I was making these decisions, what were my actions in my marriage falling to pieces, what were my actions in the choice of job that I was in, what were the driving forces behind this. And it really led to a lot of self-growth, difficult, terrifying, but and many, many, many hours of tears, and my cheeks were chapped for months from the amount of crying. But at the
Not
end,
even Vaseline could help.
no, the Vaseline kind of would have stuck around for a while, but I think I would have cried that off eventually as well. But the end of that, I came out a different person with a different view on life. And if I can help people skip that amount of pain, I would gladly do that.
And if somebody finds themselves in that situation where all hope is lost, nobody is around, and pretty much they feel like the whole world has abandoned them, what would you recommend that they look to in order for them to maybe pretty much get themselves out of that?
The first step is that the true people in your life, the people who are truly your friends, they will be there for you. You just need to reach out. The next step would be possibly a suicide support group. Like in South Africa, we have SADC. They are trained to listen to you and to talk you down if you are suffering from suicidal ideations, and if you are going down that route. There are people to help. The world is not as dark a place as it feels in that moment. It's a moment, and that moment will end. You just need to get through that moment, and there are people who will help and people who will support you through it. So I know it feels in that moment, it feels like nobody cares and nobody would even notice if you weren't there anymore, but somebody would. Somebody would notice, and somebody loves you, and somebody cares. So the only thing I can say to somebody going through that is please just reach out to somebody, because there are people who truly care, whether they know you or not. Just reach out.
Now, Lorraine, somebody in your situation would have maybe gotten better and gotten their life back together again and just say to themselves, you know what? I'll just have to figure out myself and deal with it. What's now making you show up and help others, where you could have just been better? That didn't take me away. Let me now just focus on me up until I heal.
I am a first aid instructor. Well, I was a first aid instructor for many years when I was a dive instructor as well. And there's a saying that we teach people, and that is perfect care withheld. Oh, sorry. Imperfect care provided is better than perfect care withheld. And I've taken that to heart. And I know that if I'm in an accident, and if I don't apply pressure to exactly the right place at exactly the right time, just my presence with the person who's there and me doing the best that I can is better than me going, oh no, I know how to perfectly put on a tourniquet, but I'm going to drive past. And that's how I view my life as well. There are not enough people who are talking about what it's like to be a late diagnosed autistic, ADHD, anything that's on the neurodivergent spectrum. And I mean, there are lots of ways that neurodivergent shows up. There's not enough people talking about it. There's not enough people creating supportive, safe spaces for people who feel like their lives have ended because they have a diagnosis. And as I've said, if I can stop somebody feeling the way I did when all of the masks came off, I would do that in a heartbeat, because it is one of the most devastating feelings to think that your entire life has been a lie and you didn't even know. So I can't think of a world where I wouldn't want to be there for anybody else.
I can only imagine, because I mean, we were here in life to live, to learn, and to contribute. And obviously the life that you've lived, you've now learned, how to take care of yourself. And with the first aid bit that you now have, you're now sending the elevator down, helping others that might not have the support or the know-how and the knowledge that you have actually acquired. Now, Lorraine, just hearing you and listening to you, I'm going to say this with that much love and respect. They say that life doesn't happen to us, but it happens for us. Would I be out of line to say that this came to you because you could be the only person that could champion this?
I would say that every person's life is a challenge and everybody carries their own burdens. And comparing lives, some burdens may feel bigger than others, but we can't compare one another's lives. Somebody may have lived a good life and had a small incident happen that completely demolished them. Some people might have extremely traumatic lives and really built themselves up from nothing into billionaires. We can't compare each other's journeys because we're built differently. But what we can do is learn. And that's my biggest thing. And that's my biggest strength is we can learn from everything that was given to us and the challenges that we faced. And we can take that forward and we can help others who are stuck in the same challenges. So I'm not sure if I'm the only person who could have survived this. I'm sure that there are many more out there and many who've had worse incidents happen in their lives than I have. But I'm definitely taking what I've got and I want to help others and I want to take that forward as far as I can.
Absolutely. And how can people get a hold of you or learn more, or maybe get the support that you're offering to others?
My website is shiftingmindscapes.com. They can also reach out to me via mail. It's Lauren at shiftingmindscapes.com. Those are the two best ways. I'm also on LinkedIn. So if you have a look for Lauren Colombo, it still shows that I'm a UI UX designer at the moment, but it's there. There's also Shifting Mindscapes with Lauren. So there are many ways that they can reach out. They're welcome to get in touch, pop me a mail, DM me. I'm more than willing to hop on a call, see what we can do, see how I can help and how we can make that person's life hopefully better and get them to a point where they feel like they're thriving.
I'll definitely have all those links in the show notes below so that we can actually get this going. Now, obviously, you're a late bloomer. You got that late diagnostics. Is that the reason why the only craft you showed me was the snail?
Well, it was the one thing that I had at hand on my desk. I've got a couple of other bits and pieces.
No, I like the
We
snail. I like the snail. You show us the snail.
There's my snail gone. There's my snail. So little snail, but the snail's journey is not over. He's going to be cast and he's going to become a resin doorstop, which I'm looking forward to. So he's nice and shiny so that the molding compound slides off easily. But yes, crafting is definitely a way of refilling my cup.
Absolutely. Now, I mean, obviously, there's a lot that we can uncover with your life journey and everything else, and things that you have done. But for the viewer who's watching this right now, Coach Lauren, they might have a loved one or somebody that they know that is maybe going through that sort of dark phase. What is the first aid that we can do to support our loved ones?
Believe them. Believe them that their world is different to yours. Believe them when they say they don't feel like the same person. And saying to them, no, but you are who you were. I've known you for years. You may have known the mask for years. So the best thing that you can do for your loved ones is just love them as they are, as they're going through this journey. They don't ask them for explanations. Don't ask them to explain what they're going through. Let them open up when they're ready, but just love them and be there for them and keep being a support that you have been. up until now.
Wow. And I mean, obviously, you introduced us to the younger coach Lorraine, who obviously was too much noise happening in their world and just curled up in fetal position and just didn't know and understand up until later in their life. For the young ones that are out there that are still confused and don't even know what they should make of the world that they're living in, what would you say to them?
I would say that if it's to parents, if you suspect that your child is neurodivergent, seek appropriate care. Seek. I I know the front on diagnosis is a tricky one that some people are like, oh, you just want a label, but it's really a whole lot easier living life when you know you're a zebra instead of living life as a broken horse because everyone assumes you're a horse and you just don't fit in with the horses because you're a zebra. So, the diagnosis allows somebody to embrace who they are. And it allows us to find the resources that we need to cope in a world that's built for neurotypical people. So the diagnosis is important, or at least understand that if they do self-diagnose, it's not because they're looking for attention. They're not looking for a label. I mean, there's so much stigma attached to neurodivergence. Why would we choose to have this label associated with us if it's not true? Mm-hmm. So for the young ones, if you are a parent, see how you can support your child. Look for somebody who understands what this is and what can help them grow and get through school and get through all of these difficult times where they've got their peers and peer pressure and teasing and bullying is very common as well. Unfortunately, with autistic women, particularly the rates of sexual abuse are quite high, sexual harassment, because we can't read the signs terribly well. So education is so critically important. Understanding safety and being able to say no as a young autistic woman is so critically important. And if you're a young adult, again, looking for support groups. If you feel that you are neurodivergent, follow your gut. Go and do the research, find support groups, reach out to me. There are people around who are like you. You are not alone.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for giving people permission to literally explore, because so many people, there's a lot of stigma that's attached to all of this that they, don't quite want to expose themselves to even just getting a diagnostic or things of that nature and stuff like that. But, you've shown us, what is possible and everything else that has come along, with the journey. The masks have been taken off and things of that nature. What can we expect now, Lorraine? What's next?
I'm in the process of writing a couple of courses, one of which is how to give and how to receive a true apology. Another one is building the workshops for I've just received my diagnosis and my family member / friend has just received my diagnosis. What do I do now? So I'm busy building the workshops up. I've got a couple of books that I'm going to publish that are also all based around I've just been diagnosed. What's next? How do I deal with being autistic in the workplace? How do I deal with relationships, etc.? And I am furthering my study as well. So I'm doing some very interesting studies at the moment around brain-based conditions and strength-based coaching, which I'm really looking forward to. So the growth of my community is happening, and I welcome. So I just want people to join, and I really want people to get together and recognize that there is hope, there is love, there is support, there are people here who care, and that's where I'm at.
Absolutely. Now, Lorraine, do you understand you've actually committed the ultimate sin on the online prosperity show right now?
I didn't. What have I done?
Absolutely. You see, you don't promise that you're writing a book and not promise to come and launch it on the show. So let's hear it.
I would love to come and launch it on the show. As soon as it's ready, I will do so. I'm busy editing at the moment, so it will be soon.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's more like it. Now you can, yeah. Wow, what an incredible conversation, Lorraine. Thank you. I mean, your life
Thank you.
story and your experience have so much value for a lot of people that I think you literally are giving people back to themselves because society had painted them in a whole different way and put them in a whole different corner. But you're literally saying to them, you know what? Just put a light in that corner. But make sure the light is not artificial lighting because then that could just
Basically burn. Let some
yeah,
sunlight in.
it just open the window or something like that. Thank you. Thank you for all you're
Thank you.
doing. Thank you for what you're becoming. And thank you for what you shared with us on the Online Prosperity Show today.
Thank you for the opportunity. It's been amazing chatting to you, and I really appreciate your time.
Fantastic. Now, for those that are watching, thank you so much for tuning into the Online Prosperity Show. And as you have heard, Lorraine will be coming back again, especially with the books that she has written and also maybe launching her courses, and we'll be learning a lot more. I think today was just a tip of the iceberg of what Coach Lorraine has to offer. And I want you to just recognize that her journey reminds us that our perceived challenges can actually become our greatest strengths when we embrace them with courage and curiosity. So, from learning to navigate overwhelm to unlocking the unique brilliance of neurodivergent individuals, as you have heard on the Online Prosperity Show, Lorraine is truly changing lives. So I'll definitely put all those links to her properties there in the show notes. Be sure to click any of them and connect with her. But if you've actually found value in this episode, I suggest you don't keep it to yourself. I suggest you don't keep it to yourself. I encourage you right now to share it with somebody who needs to hear Lorraine's message. And while you're at it, don't forget to subscribe because there are so many people that are in need of, this type of message out there. So let's keep building this community of growth that Lorraine has started. Let's keep understanding each other and let's keep helping others be, do, and have a happier existence. See you next time. Bye for now.